Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Dr. Pat Foster, who's the head of Camborne School of Mines and also the professor of mine safety at the University of Exeter, where he lectures and undertakes research into health, safety and working environmental aspects of mining and quarrying. Pat's going to be talking to us about the Camborne School of Mines and discuss the eagerly awaited restart of the underground mining engineering degree. And also the recent introduction of the degree apprenticeship in mine engineering and how people within the industry can apply. Plus, obviously, a lot more. Pat, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and talk about Camborne.
No, and I've wanted to get you on the podcast for a little while now, and I know obviously you're an active listener, but it's a great time now considering that you're looking to obviously restart the mine engineering degree, and obviously that's what we're going to be talking about. But before we go into all of that, I wonder if you can just tell our audience, who I imagine most of them would know you, just for those that maybe outside of the UK that may have not come across you, can you just tell us a little bit about your career, what you've done during your career, before we go into more subjects around obviously the Camborne School of Mines?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'm a mining engineer. I graduated from the University of Nottingham back in the early 90s and continued there to do a PhD with the support of British Coal at the time. That was in safety and in particular looking at applications of risk assessment in the mining industry. I completed that after privatisation in the UK and joined a company called International Mining Consultants as a safety consultant, and I worked there for 4 years, and that was based in the UK, but also did an extended period of time in a secondment in South Africa, but also had jobs in India and other places. And most of that work was again related to safety in mining, from training, obviously consultancy with big mining companies and mines, and actually some research as well. And I enjoyed that immensely, those 4 years I worked there. But with all the education, the training and the research I was doing, I just happened to, purely by coincidence, see an advert for a lecturing job at Camborne School of Mines back in 2000 it was. Applied for that, and I suppose the rest is history. I've been at Camborne since September 2000. As you said in the introduction, I sort of teach and do research on the sort of safety and working environment aspects of mining. That includes sort of surveying, ventilation, safety, teach all sorts really. And over the last 24 years, I've sort of worked my way up, I suppose, and through the organisation. I was the statutory mine manager at their test mine for a number of years. I was director of education at CSM as well. And so I had the responsibility of looking at the quality and of all the sort of courses we do. And then 2 years ago, I took over as head of the Camborne School of Mines. And this summer I was given a personal chair in mine safety. Yeah, that's a sort of very quick history of my career to date.
Yeah, no, good to hear. So yeah, just wondering if you can just tell us about the Camborne School of Mines and sort of what goes on. Obviously, there'd be a lot of listeners that would have attended the school over the years. And obviously there'd be other people that have gone to other universities around the world. So I just wonder if you can just run through, tell us a little bit about the Camborne School of Mines and what sort of goes on there.
Yeah, so the Camborne School of Mines, obviously we're an integral part of the University of Exeter in the UK. That's a sort of major Russell Group university, and we're based in the southwest of the UK. But Camborne School of Mines is older. It originally started in 1888 to provide sort of vocational training for the Cornish mines and those who worked in the Cornish mines. It's sort of originally sort of miners who worked in the mines by day and received their sort of training in the evenings in sort of mining and technical aspects of mining engineering. Over the years since, the majority of students have worked overseas, not exclusively, and that has given Camborne a pretty impressive international reputation in terms of relevant vocational training that remains to this day. I mean, a lot of our students, even now, do go overseas. I've just returned a couple of weeks ago from Australia at a sort of big alumni event, and just seeing so many 200 odd sort of recent graduates, most of whom I taught, which is quite scary, doing so well in their careers over there. But so the main focus over the years was on mining and minerals engineering. So honours degrees sort of came into play in about the mid-1970s. And we started doing an MSc programme in mining geology in 1980. We introduced geology at undergraduate level, geology undergraduate degrees in 1990. And then in 1993, we sort of incorporated into the University of Exeter. We were a sort of independent institution before that. And we've been part of them pretty much ever since, obviously just over 30 years now. We were based, obviously, originally in Camborne, hence Camborne School of Mines, which is a major sort of mining town in Cornwall, in the southwest of England. We moved in the mid-1970s from Camborne to Poole, a sort of town in between Camborne and Redruth. And then in 2004, we moved to a new campus that is shared between Exeter University and Falmouth University, just outside Falmouth in Penryn. And have been here, 20 years this summer since we moved here. And that led to a sort of major expansion of equipment, of facilities. And we've been here ever since. But we do, obviously, our main focus is on education and research. We do undergraduate courses in geology. We're good at geology. I think certainly the top league tables in the UK in the top 5. But we do undergraduate courses in geology, in engineering, geology and geotechnics, resource and applied geology, resource and exploration geology and environmental geoscience. And we get about 40 students a year in our geology programs, which is what we have to get for that. We have expanded our masters teaching over the last 20 years or so. And I think we're quite unique around the world. We have a whole range of MSc courses that cover pretty much the entire mining value chain. So that's from exploration and mining geology through mining engineering, geotechnical engineering, minerals engineering and processing, and mine environmental management. And we take about 60 to 70 students a year, ideally, on those courses. And then, of course, mining engineering. Now, as many people I'm sure are listening know, that the mining engineering undergraduate course was paused back in 2020. And obviously, we're going to talk a bit about what's happening since then. Those undergraduate courses, I mean, as with all our students, both geology and mining and MScs, we are very good at employability. All, if not the majority, if not all of those students get relevant jobs in the mining and extractive industry or the fields that they study. Great employability, great remuneration, responsibility, great careers. And obviously, as I say, the news has come out recently that we're going to reintroduce the undergraduate mining course next year. But also, you mentioned the degree apprenticeship, and that's something we started this year or last year. And it was a couple of years in the making, and that's quite unique. And that is basically an apprenticeship at the degree level. And it's sort of quite a sort of new and sort of common type of programme within UK further and higher education.
So if we start with, obviously, the restarting of the undergraduate mine engineering degree, obviously at the Camborne School of Mines, I just wondered if you can just tell us a little bit more about that, but also what has prompted this to restart this mine engineering degree, which, as we all know, is needed.
Yeah, I mean, if you look over the last 20 years in the UK, a number of universities that offered mining engineering have decreased. Down to zero, effectively now, with Camborne stopping its course back in 2020. And that demise can be put on a number of reasons. I mean, people will sort of cite the decrease and slowdown in the UK coal mining industry at the time. But it's a common phenomenon worldwide. Mining courses have been stopping in other major mining countries, and it's just something, and it's all about demand. And that was the reason the course stopped in 2020 because, as I think, we have great employability, great careers for our students, but the problem was the front door. It was very, very difficult to get a number of students in that front door, and that was ultimately the sort of main reason why the course was paused back then. In terms of reintroducing it, I mean, it's been a goal of mine, since I took over. But I think over the last sort of 2-3 years in particular, what we've seen is a sort of change in certainly governmental approaches to extraction, particularly with the sort of the critical metals issue. And in the UK, for example, the UK government issued a critical metal strategy a couple of years ago, and education was cited as a major pillar of that, and we were mentioned in that. So, the demand for critical metals has really spurred this introduction, I think, and it's spurred a need for graduates who are familiar with responsible mining practices. And I suppose also with critical metals, that we know we all work for one of the world's most essential industries. And our industry probably has never been as vital as it is now. It's crucial to the energy transition, the green economy. And I think that was recognised by the university as well as the government. Within the university, there was a strategy to increase the number of students on engineering courses generally by our colleagues in the Department of Engineering. And that strategy is about sort of new programs. And we saw this as an opportunity really to start this sort of conversation about trying to reintroduce mining with all these other sort of things that were going on. And by doing it as part of this strategy, it has obviously benefits because we can work closer with our colleagues in engineering in many of the sort of core engineering modules. And so, there'll be new engineering programs both here on our campus in Penryn, but also at the campus in Exeter. And so that opportunity was there to seriously consider this, and we made a case to the university, and it's been part of that. And I think what we're doing here is all these engineering courses, be it mining here and elsewhere, we're going to have a common first year, which is, I suppose, quite a common thing in other jurisdictions. I mean, it's common in Australia and in the US to have a sort of common first year. And then you specialise in your chosen field of engineering from year 2 onwards. So what that allows you to have is a pool of people applying to do mining, but also a pool of people who are maybe undecided on what branch of engineering they want to go to. And so we can make the case in that first year of study to come down and study mining. We can offer these opportunities. And I'm sure every engineering program at the university will be doing a similar thing as well. But it's it reintroduces our courses, but also efficiently, and making the most of all the facilities we have here in the university. Yeah, I mean, when we sort of we went through a lot of work, as I'll maybe say later, when we were looking at the degree apprenticeship in terms of a modern mining engineering course and content. We talked to a number of people around the world. We had a little advisory committee with folk from the alumni and others from the UK and overseas who were looking at the sort of content. And so what we are putting together now for a start next year is, I think, a very, very good modern take on mining engineering.
And with obviously the restart starting next year, in terms of the syllabus and the subjects that will be covered, how different is it to the previous mine engineering degree, if there is any difference? I mean,
it is different in structure, as I've said earlier on. There's the sort of common first year has a lot more sort of generic engineering. There's a lot more focus on group projects in the first year to get the sort of students working on challenges, pretty much hitting the ground running, and sort of key skills in there. Then really in sort of year 2, we sort of start specialising. I mean, there's a lot of similarity between the sort of what is taught. I mean, mining is mining, so there will be always a focus on sort of rock engineering, on geology, on ventilation. Things are always part and parcel of the mining program. But again, the way we sort of structured it around the sort of modules within the program will obviously be different as well. And it will be introduced at the sort of bachelor's level, the sort of 3-year program, but also at the Masters of Engineering level as well. And that Masters of Engineering level will sort of focus predominantly on sort of business skills and ESG and mine planning. But that's not to say those won't appear elsewhere in the course. If you want to leave with a bachelor's after 3 years, you'll have it, but you'll be a lot more sort of specialised with that extra MEng year as well. So it's a lot of similarities in terms of content, but there's a lot of sort of new content when compared to the old as well, because the industry is changing as well.
And obviously, we mentioned the degree apprenticeships in mining, which started last year. Again, I just wonder if you can explain a little bit about the apprenticeship, and I suppose how people could apply.
Yeah. So the degree apprenticeship, as I said earlier on, it's basically an apprenticeship at the degree level. So we're all familiar with the sort of the apprenticeship model, when sort of young people will sort of leave school into the trades and get an apprenticeship with a company. This is, say, at the degree level, and it's a sort of fairly recent model within sort of higher education that is sort of promoted by the government. They combine, it's obviously a part-time degree, basically apprentices as in a normal apprenticeship. You are working for an employer, in this case a mining company, and you're studying part-time. Basically 20% of your time is given over to study. And I suppose the advantages of this from the student's point of view are that you are earning and getting experience while you study for a degree. You know, you won't leave university with any sort of student debt as such. I suppose the only aspect is you sort of miss those sort of classic 3 years of university social life. But of course, the main thing is this is study. And they are, from a company's point of view, a lot of UK companies, basically, if you have a certain value in terms of your payroll, you pay a levy to the government, which you get access for training, not just at the degree level, but all sort of training at various different vocational levels. And so you can basically, companies can actually draw down that money for fees for the students. So again, it costs the company nothing other than basically allowing that student or apprentice the time that he or she can study. So that's the model of it. And really, we've been talking with the UK mining industry about the concept of a degree apprenticeship back as, 2019 and before COVID. I mean, obviously the mining course pause happened just in the sort of height of COVID. But we were given this opportunity from the UK industry really to actually work on the degree apprenticeship. And the degree apprenticeship is created by a partnership. It's led by industry. And so in order to develop an apprenticeship, what has to be done is an industry body has to sort of get together, obviously identify a need for it, and create a specification. And the specification basically lists the knowledge, skills and behaviours an apprenticeship needs to have to meet the end requirement, but also what's called an endpoint assessment. So basically how the apprentice will demonstrate those skills at the end of their course. And so we sort of sat down. We had a small working group that was made up from members from the Mining Association of the UK, Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Mines, and myself. We sat down and developed the specification over about 6 months. And we submitted that to the Institute of Apprentices and Technical Education. And it was ultimately approved. And then we could start to build a course around it. So what we do at CSM, at Camborne, is to basically give students the knowledge. Our degree course is built around that. And so what we're doing is a sort of 4-year part-time course. The students study 1 day a week, through basically online blended learning, which of course has become sort of quite more commonplace. And since COVID, a lot more sort of blended learning courses coming online. They spend 1 2-week residential in Cornwall with us, where they can actually do some labs, face-to-face teaching, any sit-down exams, those sort of things. But I think also a unique part of the course that we're particularly proud of amongst ourselves and the Mining Association is the fact that we are utilising the mines around the UK as classrooms. You can sort of sit there, there's all sorts of scales of mines in the UK. You can sit there as an apprentice at one mine and be on your own. only familiar with your operation. And so we've asked all the mines in the Mining Association if we can sort of use their facilities, use those mines as our classrooms. And so each module in the course will involve vocational assessment activities, and we will go to the most appropriate mine around the country for that. So those students or the apprentices will actually get experience at other mines, other operations, and just see, what there is out there on top of their own operation. Okay, it started last year. We had 14 students on the course starting. And I suppose the particular high point was it was launched by Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal. She came down to CSM to visit and actually launched the course. So we can actually say, as I frequently do to colleagues, that our course has royal approval.
Yeah. Eligibility, you mentioned obviously people can be eligible if they're in the mining industry, which obviously includes quarrying. Is there other related industries that these people could potentially, you could consider that they could be from?
It's difficult with quarrying because quarrying, the way that the sort of regulation works in the UK at the moment is that sort of quarrying is sort of fairly separate. The people who come on the course are all from underground operations. There is equivalent apprenticeships at level 5 for quarrying in that, but we do cover surface mining as part of the syllabus. Surface mining accounts for like 70% of the world's extraction, so it is a very, very important aspect. In the UK, we call it quarrying, and that's sort of slightly sort of different in terms of that. It is, I've got. There was some interest from students on the course from tunnelling. I mean, tunnelling was a big an employment for mining engineering students. So we've got one person from tunnelling, but I mean, again, it's about the sort of regulation that the mine is or the tunnel is worked under. And so that sort of aids this person to be able to join this course. But for the moment, it's quite a small pool, but we're looking to try and expand it by trying to just change things in the specification that can help us recruit from outside the pure underground mining sector in the UK. We've also got a pathway for an international program because it's all done distance learning, and that gives the opportunity to offer this internationally as well. Obviously, the way we'll have to approach the assessment in terms of mine-based assessment will be different. We'll have to work in partnership with the mines that those students come from. But it is, I think, an opportunity there that we're looking. We've got this year coming in, we've got a number of students from mining companies in Africa, which is really good to see.
Obviously, with this degree apprenticeship being an industry-facing course, what do employers need to be thinking about when it comes to recruiting for this? What does a suitable candidate look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the DA is very different. I mean, there are a lot. I'm sure we'll talk more about the sort of challenges of getting young people into mining shortly, but with the degree apprenticeship, with the 14 students I've got, I mean, they're all currently working at UK mines. They're experienced, mature people. They're a great bunch of students who sort of work really well and have and they vary. I've got a production manager. I've got a lot of shift managers on that. I've got some technical services, some roof bolt engineers. I've actually got one mine manager as well on that program, and so they're all obviously working people. Now, with the UK mining industry being fairly small-ish, I mean, it's a small and growing industry, but if you focus on the underground mining sector, we need to sort of look beyond those sort of people if this course is going to have a sustainable long-term life. And it's really important that this is offered as a pathway for young people as well to supplement the full-time degree. So it's important the mining companies don't just look at upskilling those people that currently work for them, and they need to upskill to get qualifications to maybe be the mine managers of those sites in the future, but also to get young people in as well. And I think it's quite pleasing this year that we've got 2 coming in September to the degree apprenticeship. We've got 2 school leavers who are being employed by mining companies and they are being sent on the degree apprenticeship as well. And that's good. And we need more of those for this course to be sustainable in the long term. So, I think it's quite attractive to students. The only thing is, of course, mines having, plans, I suppose, to increase their sort of staffing that way. So what I would say to sort of mining companies is you really need to sort of think about recruiting in the shadow of your headgear, to identify your local talent who want to work in your operations, to identify good talent and to give them the opportunity to work and get a degree while they're working.
Obviously, you mentioned maybe I suppose what are some of the challenges around recruiting for some of these programs? And I suppose, as you mentioned, the mine engineering degree was paused because of the numbers of people, the intake was low. So what are your thoughts around some of these challenges in trying to get people to even, I suppose, be aware of the mine engineering course? And I just wonder if there's any solutions to this. And I suppose other people around the world, other universities may have similar. And I just wondered if there's any advice that you could potentially give those people as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is the sort of, I suppose, what keeps me awake at night is this. As you say, it was paused in the first place because of sort of numbers. And ultimately, whilst things have changed in terms of, I suppose, the geopolitical side of things with critical metals, nothing has changed from a point of view of recruiting young people into the industry. But and this has been recognised. I mean, in the last couple of years, there's been a number of reports and studies done by organisations like PricewaterhouseCoopers, by McKinsey, the UK Mining Education Forum, the Institute of Material Minerals and Mining. The demand and need for mining engineers, and not just mining engineers, but geologists and young people to work in our industry, it's known. I mean, the age profile, the skill shortage, it's well known and well documented. And ultimately, something's going to give, at some point soon, if we don't sort it out. So what we've got here is an opportunity. I think mining engineering as a degree, one of the reasons it struggled and at the moment will struggle is because as a career it's disappeared. It's disappeared from the sort of big careers guides that are there. I mean, at Camborne, with one institution doing it, it was a minority degree. And you talk to students who would come, and some genuinely wanted to do it, some fell into it by pure chance, by coming across it for really random reasons. But it is also perceived as maybe being a bit inflexible, because if I as a young 18-year-old choose to study mining, I'm limiting myself, and that's all I can ever go into. But actually, what hooked me into mining at school was a talk from a lecturer at the Royal School of Mines who came and basically convinced me and others that mining engineering takes the best bits of other engineering disciplines, the best bits of civils, mechanical, electrical, and sort of puts it into a career that is not just about mining. I mean, many of my peers and colleagues I graduated with have started in mining or even not, and they've gone on to great things as well. So it's getting that mining back on the agenda, on the careers as guide to that. It's not really covered in the curriculum too much. I mean, the number of schools that offer geology A-levels in the UK has been decreasing. We do pretty well at geology, as I said earlier on, in terms of numbers on our sort of courses. But I think, where the interface with mining and geology comes in the curriculum is needs sort of addressing as well. That's, a lot of work needs to be done around that. And I think, and it is being done by some institutions as well. I suppose mining also is perceived as being sort of dirty and dangerous, as well. Many young people are only exposed to the industry when things go wrong, and that's what they see. You can argue that young people have very different values to what they did maybe 10, 20 years ago, different values about and opinions about the future of the planet and environment. But what I would say to that really is, there's a place for everyone in the mining industry. I think it's not about mining engineers. I mean, it is an industry that I think has a role for all graduates of all disciplines, from social sciences, to humanities in some aspects. come and help the industry, come and work with the industry. The industry is made massive improvements in terms of some of these things, but again, it's just what people perceive for whatever reason. But I will back to say that our industry has never been so important. I think what we have is a sort of a real, now with critical metals, a once in a generational opportunity to make a case for how important and crucial our industry is. Right? I mean, we've never had this opportunity. I think with the energy transition, we need to remold. We need to change the perceptions of young people about mining for the better, particularly amongst young people, to really try and increase the perception and acceptance of our industry. And we need that for all our programs, and not just the undergraduate course, but other, geology and other things as well. And if a new course is going to basically be successful, we need that. We need that now. And we can't do that alone as universities. That's the sort of problem. We need to work with industry and professional institutions. We all have a role in doing this. And what I would say, I suppose, to listeners is urge you to think how you and your companies can help. There have been some great and timely examples at the moment in the UK. For the quarrying industry in the UK does this really well. It has a sort of a partnership that is widening to sort of underground mining called Minerals Matter. They promote the industry in schools and have a great network of STEM ambassadors. I think the new course for the common first year will help, and that gives us time again to get people in, but also to try and get people who are undecided in the sort of more general engineering field to come in well. But I mean, ultimately, the way I look at it is, as an industry working in partnership, we need to promote ourselves. Wouldn't it be great if we could offer all those students who did mining engineering guaranteed vacation work, which we can, scholarships, mentoring, all these opportunities, on top of the fact that we're working for one of the world's most essential industries. I'm looking at scholarship opportunities from companies to offer these students. I think that will help as well, because it's just getting that out there, and just as a sort of, by doing something different, a bit from other courses, using scholarships as maybe a carrot, but also, again, as an industry and the professional associations, we have to work together and again promote ourselves, and that needs to start pretty much immediately.
Yeah, if there's obviously young people interested in doing the actual degree apprenticeship, and they don't work in the industry, as you mentioned, you have to work in the industry to go onto the course. How can they actually approach a potential employer to then help them support them on the actual program? And I guess anyone that's listening to this can obviously share this episode to people that they know, people outside of mining in the industry, and then maybe they can then pass that information on to some of the younger people to consider. So yeah, how can they approach an employee to support?
I mean, obviously, certainly in the UK is, well, the first thing to mention is, if they haven't got employment with a company to do an apprenticeship, it's not the end of the world, because we have a new full-time course starting next year. So we are. But if that is their true vocation, then obviously I think that the thing to do would be to make contact with those mining companies, particularly if they're in the vicinity. I'm not saying it exclusively, but I mean, obviously it helps if you are local, I suppose, to them, but it's not exclusive. I mean, ironically, both the students we're talking about, the two young people, school leavers who are joining an apprenticeship course in September this month, are Cornish lads. They're from Cornwall, both of them working up in the Midlands, or one working up in the Midlands anyway, from that. But it would be to approach those the mines. And I think and hope that those mining companies in the UK as well will start making this a sort of commonplace employment model for them, as well as sort of just taking graduates in for positions, but actually to think about degree apprenticeships in their sort of career planning going forward. So it would be to write to those mining companies most, if not all, of the underground mines in the UK are members of the Mining Association of the UK. The website of the Mining Association will have all those mines on it, and that can be used as a sort of start point to sort of see what mines there are, what we actually do extract from underground in the UK. Be it polyhalite, be it gypsum, salt, fluorspar, and others.
And I suppose how do candidates actually apply? And obviously, trying to gain more information about this.
Yeah, so with degree apprentices, obviously they have to apply they have to be working in the company because their company has to apply. I suppose what I would say to that is if you go to the website, so if you go to the Exeter University main website, look under degree apprentices, you will see down there a list of degree apprenticeships that Exeter offer. We offer a lot at the University of Exeter because it's sort of it's seen apprenticeships as part of its sort of model of delivery going forward. But under there you'll see an apprenticeship in mine management. That's what it's called because the actual specification is called mine management. And you'll get a degree in mining engineering, but you'll get a level 6 qualification in mine management if you do to it. But companies have to apply to that. Companies who are not payers of the apprenticeship levy, it doesn't matter necessarily. There are, if you apply early in the cycle, there are means and ways around that. So what I would suggest our listeners do is to go onto the website, go onto the degree apprenticeship mine management page. On there's an email address for my team who administer and manage the process, and they will get back to you and answer any questions that people will have. In terms of the full-time course, of course, that information will appear. It's all there's hot news, I suppose. And as soon as we get the sort of final approval and the sort of UCAS number, that will be on the website. There's a holding page there now as we speak, as this interview is taking place. And the sort of standard normal degree, full-time degree, obviously through the UCAS system, and the same with our geology degrees as well. So that's the way to apply. But for degree apprenticeships, look at the web page, look at that email address, and get in contact with us.
Yeah. And with obviously any degrees, it's open to obviously not just UK people, but international. What about the actual degree apprenticeship? Is that open to international companies as well?
Yeah. So, well, yes, effectively, although it's not called a degree apprenticeship. The degree apprenticeship is the exclusive name for the sort of UK or the English part of it. But we have a sort of pathway for international students. The syllabus is the same. The teaching is the same sort of model. The assessment is the same, albeit a different structure, because we'll have to work with the mines overseas for that. But there is an international pathway for the international degree apprenticeship, although it's not strictly that. And again, the information isn't there. On the website, it's down as a sort of mining engineering part-time course, is what you'll see to that. And again, it's the same team all looking and to answer any questions for that. But again, on the full-time course, Camborne has a long history of educating and training overseas students, particularly from Africa, but not exclusively from Africa. We've had students from all pretty much, even my 20 years, many, many different places around the world. And if you go back for the last 100 before that, it's been, a major part of our history, and we hope that will continue in the future. I'm sure it will do as well.
Yeah, great. And is there any closing final words that you want to give our audience?
Not really. I think I've probably said most of it in my answers given. But I suppose what I will say again to reiterate is, this is a unique opportunity that we have. It's not very often that universities will reintroduce a closed course, and we've got to basically prove that we were right. We as Camborne, I've got to prove to the university that we're right in doing this. There's been a demand from it in terms of industry, government, etc. Now we've really got to sort of make that demand, promote ourselves, promote the industry to young people, and actually get people. Because if we can't get them, and it doesn't go the way we want, then it'll be very, very difficult in the future. So yes, please urge you to think about how you can help.
Yes, certainly. Well, really appreciate your time, Pat. Thank you for giving us a tour of the Camborne School of Mines and obviously telling us about the restart of the mine engineering degree and obviously the degree apprenticeship as well, and how people can potentially apply. And I suppose what we need to do as a mining industry is help promote this. So thank you for giving us that update. If our audience wants to obviously reach out, obviously you mentioned go to the website. Is there any other ways that they can contact you?
Yeah,
Is there
my
social
details
media?
on the website.
Yeah.
So please go and reach out to me directly. I'll be around. Over the next sort of couple of months, I'll be in London a few times at the ICMM Leadership Summit, at the Resourcing Tomorrow event, and others. So yeah, I'm always around. Seek me out there. Drop me an email. Let's have that conversation.
Yeah. And I suppose with the youngsters, are you across social media platforms as well?
I am, yes. And CSM is as well. I've got all
Yeah.
the sort of the modern social media platforms. Yes, I'm not on all of them, but you can reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, great. Okay, Pat, really thank you for giving us that update, and maybe come on the podcast next year and let us know how later on next year, let us know how it all goes, and obviously restart of the mine engineering degree. It'd be good to get an update from you.
It'll be a pleasure. No, thank you so much for the opportunity, and happy to provide an update in the future whenever.
Yeah, great. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed that episode. If there's one episode that needs to be shared across our mining industry and people outside of our mining industry, it is this one. If we want to improve, obviously, the image, the branding, get more people into our industry and help upskill people within our industry, then this episode needs to be shared. So to make everyone aware what's out there and how they can improve their skill, get a degree from it as well. But also the younger generation. So maybe anyone that's listening that's got younger children, show them this episode and get them interested in mining, because that's the only way that we're going to help improve the branding and help people into our industry. So thank you for listening. Appreciate your continued support. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.